Madam, I compliment Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitaran ji on this historic budget. Historic because not only is it her sixth successive budget, I stand corrected, seventh successive budget, but the first one in the historic third consecutive term headed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Madam, I wish to put this budget in the context of what has happened in the last 10 years. I will speak on the budget, but this context is important, Madam, because we have just a few minutes ago heard a pining for the colonial era. We have heard a little bit before that weird allegations that this government is like the British Raj, which has just been contradicted by my previous speaker, who was pining for the colonial era of the 1920s. Madam, there are terms to describe this kind of an attitude, but I will remain parliamentary. And so the parliamentary term for it in social sciences is referred to as a westernized oriental gentleman, a wog. And that's because while you pine for the former masters and the degrees that they give from their countries and denigrate ours, those former masters don't respect you. Those former masters don't respect you. They refer to you, when they are charitable, as wogs. Madam, the context of the last 10 years is as follows. When Prime Minister Modi formed his first government 10 years ago, he inherited from the previous government a huge backlog of undone reforms. In fact, in the words of my friend, the honorable member from Thiruvananthapuram, you might call it a long laundry list of unattempted reforms. Starting with GST, going on with the bankruptcy code, and we could keep going on and on. Madam, this budget is both very wide in its scope, but also very deep in addressing the reforms that are necessary to take Bharat forward. Madam, for the last 5 years from outside this house, I have admired Nirmala Sitaran ji's previous budgets when, during the second Modi government, she consolidated on the deep fiscal reforms that were initiated in the first Modi government by my friend, the late Arun Jaitley. In the second term, during Nirmala ji's budgets being presented, India consistently remained the fastest growing large economy in the world. Now, sometimes questions are raised that what is the importance of being the fastest growing large economy? How does it benefit the Aam Aadmi? How does it benefit the average Bharatiya? I will tell you, madam. Because this growth has enabled the massive increases in allocations and the massive improvement in outputs and results that have been demonstrated in the last 10 years. And this has been commented upon by a wide variety of experts around the world. And I will refer to some of them. Now, if you look at just a few weeks ago, looking at the data coming out for the financial year that we just completed and entered this financial year, these are the words of some of the pink papers in both India and abroad. I quote one, but this has been repeated many different times. Quote, in 2024, India has experienced significant economic growth, with exports reaching a record high of $776 billion at an 11.8% increase. The unemployment rate has dropped to a record low of 3.1%, and business activity and job creation are at an 18-year high, reflecting a robust economy. Now, Madam, some of my friends in the opposition branches get a little triggered when we cite some of these statistics. So I'll have to issue a trigger warning. But the data indicates, if you look at the job creation data, for example, in just, look, I'll tell you where it is manipulated. The manipulated data comes from certain organizations where the head of the organization is the head of your manifesto drafting committee. When you cite organizations where the head of that organization is the head of your manifesto drafting committee, that is biased. This is not biased. These are RBI data. These are reflected by the World Bank and by the IMF and by India's pink papers. Next,